Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Gina Taylor, and welcome to the Foundations of Exceptional Service from Forbes Travel Guide. Now, the information you'll receive today applies to all areas of your establishments and as they relate to a luxurious guest experience. Before we jump into the material itself, I do want to tell you a little bit about us and Forbes Travel Guide and to let you know what we do. We are the official star rating company, and we've been around for decades. We've been doing what we do since 1958, and we have undercover guests that go out and travel the world, and they evaluate hotels and restaurants and spas in over 70 different countries. Based on the evaluations that they conduct, establishments can then earn a 5-star, 4-star, or recommended rating. And as you can see from the slide here, only 268 hotels in the world have earned a 5-star award. These hotels truly are the best of the best. Now you can also see that we have 592 hotels that have earned a 4-star award and 439 that have earned a recommended award, all which are very prestigious awards as well. In today's training, we're going to share some of the secrets that these incredible hotels what they've been doing to provide this exceptional service to their luxury guests. And part of that secret is getting into the mindset of thinking like a luxury guest. And when we have our evaluators out and about on the property, they're looking at various levels of service that a guest would expect. And they're looking at everything through the lens of the Forbes Travel Guide service standards and expectations. All of the standards that our evaluators look for are rated with a yes or a no. So every standard, it has to be 100% yes to achieve that standard. There's really nothing in the middle. There's no maybes, there's no half credit. It either happened or it didn't. So it's not about what the staff could have done. It's about what was actually done and how it affected the guest experience. And each standard is evaluated independently. So they're very much looking for a specific part of the experience every time they look for a certain guest expectation. When we think about those service scores and the star ratings, there's two parts that go into every evaluation. So if you think about when a guest leaves your establishment, what do you think they take with them? They take their memories with them. And long after they remember what the guest room may have looked like, or the linens on the bed, or the teacups in the restaurant, they're going to remember how they felt. And this is why 75% of what we look at in terms of a score for that award is directly related to the service that was provided that left the guest feeling a certain way. There's also a section on facility, and that does cover physical items, and that's everything from furnishings in the guest room to the public areas to the wine glasses in the restaurant. That everything has to be in excellent condition and of very luxurious quality to achieve those particular service standards. And those account for 25% of the score. Since we do have so many expectations that go into the evaluation, we look at everything in terms of the classifications. And these are categories that help summarize the overall guest experience. And we're going to review some of the very important service classifications in this webinar today. For example, we're going to talk about guest comfort and convenience. And if you think about this classification, a great visual for you will be to think about where a guest has their bath amenities placed in your guest rooms. Now, if the bath amenities are already placed in the shower, for example, or on the bath ledge, that's the most convenient location. So if we picture a guest going to take a shower, but all of their bath amenities were left on the vanity, they may have already turned the water on and started their shower before they realize they have to walk outside to get the soap or the shampoo. So the location of where we put those items are a guest comfort and convenience service expectation. We're going to review courtesy and manners today, how we conduct ourselves in front of the guest. What do we say and how do we say it? There's standards that talk about technical execution, skill, and knowledge, how well we know our own roles, what an expert that we are on property. There's standards that talk about graciousness, thoughtfulness, and sense of personalized service. And this particular classification has standards that review the emotional connection we make with the guest and how we personalize the interactions. We'll cover efficiency and timing, staff appearance, how we prepare for our shifts, everything from our uniform and grooming to being poised and ready to greet guests when they come to visit on property. And the very first classification we'll start with today is courtesy and manners. And we're going to take a deeper dive into this particular expectation from the guest perspective and look at the different service standards that go into this particular category. If we think about a first impression and what our guests are thinking when they first arrive, this is where we talk about acknowledgement. So we say, be the first to acknowledge the guest. Beat the greet. Now, coming into a luxury property, a guest is going to expect to have a warm welcome, of course. Beat the greet means that we give our greeting before the guest says something to us. And this can be a little tricky depending on where we are on property. So for example, if I'm at the front desk and I am attending to a guest and I'm checking them in, but I have another guest waiting in line, I still have to beat the greet. I still have to provide an acknowledgement. And if I look over to the other guest and I smile and I nod, that would still be fulfilling this guest expectation. If we put ourselves in the guest shoes, and we know what that feels like if we arrive to a location or a host stand for a restaurant, and maybe there's a little bit of a line, we suddenly feel invisible as if no one sees us. But if someone gives a smile or a nod, in acknowledgement, that will still count as beating the greet. And this creates such a warm and welcoming first impression. Moving into standards that talk about the way we look when we greet our guests and our facial expression itself, we say smile and be engaged. Now, this seems very obvious. And of course, when we talk about smiling, this is one of the best, most universal way of greeting any guest that's in front of us. We don't have to have every tooth showing, for example, to get a yes for smiling, but it is about being approachable, and it's also having a happy energy. Having a happy demeanor makes someone feel comfortable, makes someone feel relaxed in our presence. Smiling is an action, but happiness is an energy. So remembering how we look when we're having those interactions with our guests. Now, in some parts of the world, we will be wearing a mask, maybe at this point in time. But remembering the smiling still should happen at the top part of our face, and we should be smiling with our eyes, even if we have facial covering. That energy should still be apparent. We also say to maintain focus, and this is making eye contact when we speak to our guests. If we have our head down while we're looking at our computer and we're not making contact, our sentiments won't sound as sincere. So smiling and eye contact, two very important ways that we can show the guest that we have our full focus on them and they're important to us. Moving into another guest expectation, which is about the way we speak to our guests. And this is about language that matches our environment. And we want to definitely be well crafted in the way we speak, but we want to be authentic and not scripted. So we want to think about being confident, but being genuine and being kind. There's a few things to think about in terms of our language. For one, casual language doesn't fit a luxury environment, and a lot of us have the same 3 bad habits. We may have a casual habit of saying hello or goodbye in a way where we would say hi or hey, or maybe see you later, which wouldn't sound as elegant. We could use a lot of filler words. Sometimes when we're not as confident, we say a lot of ums or ahs or like, and we try to bridge the gap in our conversations. And that doesn't sound as professional either. We may be casual in the way that we tell a guest yes or no. We could be confirming information. If we say yeah, it doesn't sound very professional. If we say no problem, we're actually answering the guest with two negative words. Our language should be positive. Once again, it's that positive energy that we want to achieve. So let's take a look at language once again in terms of being casual in those three different categories. Greetings and goodbyes. I know we talked about hi or hey. If I started this session by saying, hey guys, what's up? You might think, oh my goodness, what am I going to learn? This doesn't sound very 5-star to me. It doesn't sound very luxurious. If we use a lot of filler words where we say ums and ahs, or maybe we can't hear the guest and we say, huh? Or we're trying to address the group and we say guys, these words that we're using to fill the gap give a message that our language isn't service-oriented. Words can be very powerful and they can be very impactful when we're using the right ones. When we confirm something with a guest, we might say sure or okay. Possibly we're taking a reservation and we want to give our great first impression over the phone if they're coming to dine with us. And if they start to give us all the details of their reservation and we say, okay, yeah, we're not giving the impression that they have a special experience waiting for them when they come onto our establishment. Let's look at some substitutes. And the trick with language is thinking about what we currently say and coming up with the best substitutes. Greetings and goodbyes. We always want to think about being as welcoming as possible and really making sure that we have an impressive greeting. Saying good morning, good afternoon, good evening with a smile. When we say goodbye to someone, are we wishing them a good day or telling them to enjoy their evening? That sounds so much better than see you later, doesn't it? When it comes to those filler words, we want to take them out of our conversations. That if we are a little bit nervous about a particular question a guest might ask us or a request, we may say or ah and stall a little bit. But take a break and exude that confidence. We don't have to put those words in our conversation just to fill the time. And then if we think about the way we confirm information, saying certainly or absolutely, excellent, wonderful, lovely, finding out what words we say casually and then confirming them with these powerful words here give the sense of service. And thinking about the ones that fit your own personality so it's natural and authentic is the best way to ensure that we're providing language that matches the beautiful environments in which we work. Along with the words we use, we always want to think about our tone and our appropriate pace as we're speaking to a guest. If we speak too quickly, it may seem as if we're rushing the guest. If our words are a bit short, if we say, oh, sure, or no problem, we talked about that, has a bit of a negative tone to it. We're not giving the guest the impression that we want to fulfill their request or assist them in any way possible. So being gracious and polite will be something we want to always have, no matter the conversation, to ensure the guest feels well cared for. Now I have couple phone calls I'd like you to listen to, and these will address some of the guest expectations that we just talked about in the slides previously. So let's listen to the first call.
Good afternoon. Thank you for calling the hotel operator. My name is Megan. How can I help you?
Yes, I was hoping I could get some toothpaste.
Sure. Do you want some dental floss too?
No, thank you, just the toothpaste.
Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Now, if you were the guest on the other line, what might you think about the service at this establishment? How was the tone and the pace? Did it sound a bit abrupt? How about the words that were used? The words sure or anything else? It was a little bit rushed too. And even though our staff member said, have a good day, she said, okay, have a good day. And it was rather flat. It didn't have that polite sound behind it. So just in a short phone call, we're giving the guest the impression that we're not really going to go over and beyond, and the service isn't very warm. So every step of service that we talked about so far is so important in coming together when we're speaking to the guest. Let's listen to that second call and see how you feel about this one.
Good afternoon. Thank you for calling the hotel operator. My name is Megan. How could I help you?
Yes, I was hoping I could get some toothpaste.
Of course, Ms. Yates. Would you also like me to send some dental floss?
Oh, no, thank you. Just the toothpaste.
Is there anything else I can assist you with?
Nope, that's it.
Well, thank you, Ms. Yates, and you have a wonderful day.
Thank you. I will. You too.
I think we all feel a little bit better after that call, don't we? Now, the second call had some of those power words. We heard have a wonderful day at the end, that instead of just answering with a sure, she said, of course, and she used the guest's name. And she said, thank you by using the guest's name. And you could just hear her smile over the phone, couldn't you? And the pace was a bit slower. So all of those details that we've talked about up until this point really come to life when we can hear them ourselves from the guest perspective. And speaking of that last part of the conversation, we always want to make sure that we close conversations and show appreciation. And that last part of the call that we heard, the first time we heard have a good day, and then the second one we heard have a wonderful day, it was a wish that had to come through in a way that was very genuine. We truly heard it come out in that second call. So the last thing that we say to the guest should give some type of warm and fuzzy feeling, that it should show appreciation by saying thank you, or it could be a wish such as have a wonderful day. It could be both or one of the other. It really just depends on the conversation. What did we hear that the guests would be doing? Are they going out for the evening to dinner? Are we able to wish them a wonderful evening at their dinner? Whatever we had learned during that conversation, we can personalize in their closing remarks. Now, one thing to think about, that our guest oftentimes thanks us. And if someone would say to me, oh, thank you so much, Ms. Taylor, you've been so helpful. And if I say, oh, my pleasure, that sounds a little flat, doesn't it? That simply saying my pleasure or you're welcome doesn't sound as gracious when our guest has already said thank you to us. So we want to make sure that our closing comment is even more gracious than our guest. We want to be the person that leaves that fond farewell. So closing conversations could be a thank you or a wish or both, but they have to be present, even in the shortest of conversations. Let's go ahead and test this out. So I'm going to show you 3 groups, one at a time, and we're going to come up with a great example of a personalized closing remark. In this first picture, it appears that we have a couple dining with us, and they seem to be having some type of special occasion. And if I was the host staff member and I was escorting them to their table, before I left them to walk away, I could say, thank you so much for spending your anniversary with us. Please enjoy your meal. I might have a family spending their summer holiday with us. And let's say I'm the bellman and I'm just leaving their room. I might want to tell them, we're so happy you and your family are spending your summer holiday with us. Have a fantastic time. Or it could be a traveler at one of our retail locations, and I could say, enjoy your time in the city. Thank you again for stopping in. The closing remarks were different for all of the guests, but the idea was that they were present and they were genuine. Move now into our second classification. So we're going to take a deeper dive into what it means to be gracious, thoughtful, and show a sense of personalized service. The first guest expectation talks about showing a genuine interest. We say collect the golden nuggets. Now there's two things to think about with this particular expectation. The first part, we want to hone in on the word genuine. That's genuine care and concern. The second part talks about golden nuggets. Now, a golden nugget is a piece of information that we'll learn from the guest based on questions that we might ask them or things that we might observe, but our guests are always giving us cues, whether they know it or not. And it's our job in hospitality to pick up on those nuggets and use it to personalize our service. So to show genuine interest and care and concern for the guest, we do want to think about what we've learned. What did we learn about the guest? What was the golden nugget? And then we want to prove to the guest that we've been listening. So we're going to practice this with 3 more guests. And for example, I have a business traveler here, and he might be arriving on property. And to show genuine interest, I could ask him, may I ask what brings you into town? And my business traveler may not be too chatty, but let's say he tells us he's in town for work. I can respond by saying, how nice that you'll be here in our lovely destination to conduct your business. Now I know he's here for work, but that he also has the opportunity to spend time on property. So by responding to that golden nugget and personalizing that service, I've shown genuine care and concern. Let's say I have these groups of friends that are here, and we can look at these friends and they're dressed all in the same color and they look like they're possibly going to a big game or a sporting event. Now, let's say that they're in my restaurant and I'm their server, and I ask them if they're here for the big game. And they say yes, and I might want to follow up and ask them, what time is it? And they'll say, actually, the game is tonight. And I could say, wonderful. Well, please come back and be sure to experience a live band that we have after the game, and tell them a little bit about that particular element of service that they can enjoy while they're here with us. So listening, observing, noticing that they're friends together, and responding to that particular golden nugget. Possibly we have a mother and daughter visiting the spa for a weekend. And if they come in and I ask them if they're celebrating a special occasion, they might tell me that they're celebrating a birthday. And my response to show genuine care and concern could be, how nice, it's a birthday, happy birthday. And I can let them know you've certainly come to the right place to celebrate. Learning something about the guest and proving we are listening is the truest form of showing that genuine connection. And what that does, it helps us to be thoughtful and intuitive. We say to be thoughtful when we have our interactions with our guests, and remember the +1. +1 service means that we're going to add something onto the service. To be a luxury property, we can't just do what's expected. We have to do more. And thoughtful service requires some extra thought. So we say to be anticipatory, and this is about providing a service the guests didn't even think that they needed. And when we say +1, this could be one more piece of information than what the guest was asking for, or one offer of service that's more than what the guest was asking for. So let's practice this and go back to the guests that we just had in the last exercise when we talked about genuine care and concern. Now, if we look at our business guest here, we remember that he was visiting us for work. And it's something where I could tell him that we have complimentary Wi-Fi throughout the hotel. This way, if he doesn't want to just work on his presentations or his meetings for the next day in his guest room, he can wander around the hotel in the different areas that we have that could help him still connect with his teams and get ready for the meetings. I might also tell him that we have a house car that can take him 10 minutes away from the hotel if perhaps he mentions that his meeting's off site. Now we have our sports fans, don't we? So knowing that they have the big game that evening, and I've already told them a little bit about the live entertainment that we have, but maybe the next day they'll be looking for other things to do on property or in the area because they're only in town for the game, but they've got some time the next day. I could tell them about the brunch that we have the following morning, or I could offer the assistance of the concierge to have a tour given to them or information about a tour that a group can really enjoy together and see some wonderful sights with some free time that they have the next day. A +1 for my mother-daughter visitors could be that once they're in the spa, we offer them a glass of champagne to toast their birthday. Or possibly it's information on some dining on where they could have a really special occasion dinner once they're finished at the spa. But it's an added level of service or it's an added piece of information. That's the +1. As we continue on with personalized service, we want to consider the expectation of using the guest name. We say make the experience personal. When it comes to luxury hospitality, we want to ensure every guest feels at home and every guest truly feels like an individual. And there's no better way to do that than using someone's name. That's the biggest golden nugget that we have. There's a few challenges though when it comes to using the guest name. And normally when I ask this question in a training, I'll ask what prohibits us from using the guest name? And almost always hands will raise and we'll talk about the fact that someone's name might be hard to pronounce. So depending on where our guests are coming from around the world, that they might have a name that might be a bit more challenging or one that we are as familiar with. But it's really not about the pronunciation, but about the confidence in addressing a guest in a personalized manner. We want to have a huge smile. We want to do our best to say it confidently, and we want to make sure that the guest feels known. So when you have access to the guest name, we're required to use it. And we want to make sure that we use it effectively, that we don't overuse it, but we don't want to just use it once after we've read it off of their credit card, for example, or their folio. We want to use it as if we've been addressing a friend. But if confidence is key here, let's see what it looks like if I try to pronounce a few of the names on some of the slides. Now, I could say, welcome, Mr. Chalar. Or I could say, good morning, Miss Buress. Or I could say, good morning, Mr. Shevaprava Damrong. It's so nice to have you on property. Now, which one do you think was best? I'm guessing the first two, when I stuttered through the name and when I had a weird look on my face, I didn't make the guest feel very special, did I? I put too much focus on the pronunciation and therefore might have made the guest feel uncomfortable. But the idea is that there may be names that are a bit more challenging to pronounce. There's nothing wrong with asking the guest how to pronounce their name. Let them pronounce it for you. Listen carefully. Jot the information down. Think about how it sounds. And then repeat the name after the guest has said it out loud to you. It takes practice, but when we get in the habit of doing this, it becomes second nature. And in the end, when it's second nature to address our guests as an individual, our guests will always feel very special and known. And that's how we want them to feel when they're on property with us. An expectation at the luxury level is that a guest will never hear the word no. And now all of us know that there are times where we aren't able to fulfill a request. That's never our goal, but what we want to think about is in those instances where we can't make a request exactly how the guest is looking for the service, what alternatives can we offer? We don't want to ever say, no, I'm sorry, we aren't able to do that. We want to give some type of alternative option that will assist the guest in still having a wonderful experience. Now, if we test this out and we're saying don't say no, if a guest asks us, for example, if they can have a late checkout. And now I'm in the front office. I already know today is an absolute no when it comes to late checkouts. We have so many arrivals coming in that afternoon. We aren't able to extend anyone's time with us. What is an alternative that I can offer to our guests that ask us this question? Depending on our locations, we can check their luggage for them, for example, and we can offer the ability to use the pool or still dine at our restaurants. And it might be something where they just wanted to sightsee for the day and they don't have a flight till later on that evening. It could be perfectly helpful for them just to know that someone will take care of their luggage. They can go out and do some sightseeing and come back later and collect their luggage. If we make it seamless for the guest, they might not even focus on the fact that we had to say no. The idea with this particular expectation is that we want to focus on what we are able to do. That alternative is just giving the guest options that may be exactly what they need. They just didn't even ask for it in those specific words. We may have a guest that asks us on a Saturday in the middle of summer if they could have a table outside. Now, we may know as a server, as a host staff member, we're fully committed for outside tables till 9 p.m. However, if I told those guests, at the moment we don't have any tables outside, however, I have a lovely table inside here right by the windows with an incredible view. That's an alternative that may make the guest very happy. Or maybe they have that table with the view for part of their experience and we're able to move them a little bit later when a table does open up outside. It's all in the words that we use and the polite tone, and also thinking on our feet with that alternative that may be just as good as their initial request. We might be at the bar and I'm the bartender and a guest tells me that their favorite beer is Taco Truck Lager. And they say, do you have that? Now, as the bartender, I may not have that particular item, but I want to focus on what we do have. And I might tell the guest, we don't have that particular beer, although we have a wonderful selection of local specialty beers and IPAs. And I could open the menu and point out those options and tell a little story about some of those options so it sounds even more appealing than maybe their favorite beer at that time. The idea is not to say no, focus on what we can do, and really be empowered to think on our feet to what will still create a wonderful experience for our guest. We're going to move into the classification of guest comfort and convenience. And when thinking about this particular classification, this was the example I gave earlier in the session about the bath amenities being placed in the shower versus being placed on the vanity. And where we want our minds to go with this particular category is to think about luxury service as eliminating as many jobs as possible for the guest. Luxury stops when guests have thinking to do and when they have jobs to do. So how do we eliminate as many jobs as possible in all of our areas? So we look at this a couple different ways from Forbes Travel Guide, and I'd like to give you a few more tangible examples. For a bellman delivering delivering luggage to the guest room, how should it be left? If we look at this picture here, would we say the luggage is conveniently stored for the guest? One piece of luggage is actually upside down with the zipper facing the opposite way, and the other is placed directly on the floor. We'll have to give this one a no. The guest definitely has some jobs to do here in picking up their luggage, turning it around, and also placing the other luggage on some type of surface. In this next picture, the picture on the left shows two pieces of luggage set next to a bench. And then the picture on the right actually shows the luggage near a bench and near a luggage rack, but it was not placed on either one. So we couldn't say that these were the most convenient ways to place luggage for these guests either. This last picture shows us a very convenient way to store someone's luggage. It's up on a luggage rack, it's actually near the closet, and the zipper is facing out. So all the guest has to do is unzip their luggage, open it up, start unpacking, and enjoy their vacation. Now for our housekeeping team, we look for the guest clothes to be left a certain way, and really the room after the daily service should be organized and tidy so the guests can return and start relaxing. What should happen with the guest clothes that are left around the room? Now in this first picture, would we say that these clothes were handled with care, or could there be some improvements? Picture 2 shows us a luxurious housekeeping attention to detail when it comes to clothing. As you can see here, a lot of the items are in neat piles. They're neatly folded or they're draped. We have a jacket that's actually on a hanger, so it looks nice and neat. And it's also very convenient in the sense that the guests could pick it up and put it in the closet should they wish. Now, we never want to put the clothes in the guest closet without them knowing. We don't want them to return to the room and wonder where their items had gone. But we certainly want to leave things out in an organized manner. So neatly folded or draped would meet a luxury guest expectation. If we also look to the items that are next to the sofa, there's a laundry bag with some items placed on top. Now, those items may have been noted by the housekeeping attendant as being soiled or worn. Maybe it's some workout clothes. So they've placed a laundry bag for the guest convenience. They can either send their laundry out to be serviced, or they could put their items in a bag to place in their suitcase. But either way, that subtle message tells the guest that we notice this and we're giving an extra level of care to you during the service. And it also makes the room so much tidier when they return. If you could deliver complimentary bar snacks to the guest, what else might they need? In terms of guest comfort and convenience, we have some lovely bar snacks here. And as you'll see in the left side of the picture, there's some mixed nuts, crisps, and olives. If the guests were eating those particular items, they're definitely going to get salt on their fingers. And if they didn't have the napkins that were provided or the small picks that you'll see to the side, it could be very inconvenient. If we look to the right side of the picture where they have wasabi peas and almonds and also a mixed nut mix, that the napkins that are very neatly presented with all the logos neatly set across, not only does that look very elegant, it's also for the guest's convenience. If they weren't present, the guest would have a problem, probably have to prompt for some napkins. And then finally, we look at an in-room dining experience. For in-room dining orders, I'm going to show you two setups and have you decide which one has given the guest no jobs to think about or to do. Here's picture 1. And here's picture 2. Now, if we look to the picture on the left, are there still jobs left for the guest to do? And the answer is yes. So the chair is actually still in front of the desk, in front of the computer. If we look closely on the table, the serviceware needs to be pulled closer to the guest as the beverage does, and also some of the condiments that go along with the items that have been served for that meal. So this guest not only has to move some furniture, but has to stand up, rearrange some of the place settings to feel comfortable before actually beginning to eat. If we look to the right side, the chair was brought up to the table for the guest. The silverware was neatly placed down on either side of the place setting. We also notice that the guest is starting with a soup, and that's the very first course set in front of them, with the second main course in the back, and even their dessert is set alongside to the left of them. And even just looking at the elegant, neat place setting and the organization of it all, we can truly say that there aren't any jobs left for this guest to do except to eat. And that's the intention of a luxurious room service in-room dining setting. In terms of service expectations at the luxury level, we always want to think about the guest's timing. The most valuable thing that your guest has is their time. And when they come to you and they have allotted their precious time to stay at your hotel, to spend their vacation, to conduct business, we want to be as respectful as possible with those precious moments. We say to be timely and have a sense of urgency, and thinking about having a bit of a spring in our step when we provide our service. And if we have a guest that comes to us and they come to breakfast in our restaurant and they're thinking about that first espresso in the morning or that cup of coffee, and they sit down at your restaurant, and let's say I'm the server and I take that order for espresso. And let's say I walk away very slowly to the kitchen to get that item. What might the guest be thinking? Will I ever get my espresso? So we do want to make sure that we give the guest the impression that we are there to provide not only warm service and friendly service, but there's a sense of urgency and a sense of efficiency to carrying out each and every request. As we dive into the staff appearance classification, there are 3 critical areas that goes into staff appearance. And the very first one we talk about is our uniform. In terms of uniform, that's something that for most properties, the uniform's already provided. And so our staff and all of us, we really don't have to think about what we're going to wear, but we have to think about how we're going to wear it. And is it clean? Is it pressed? Or are there soil marks? Or are there tears? If the level of attention to detail isn't present in our uniform, where will the guest's mind go when they see you? And if we are, let's say, that spa attendant, and we're assisting the guest throughout the spa, but we have a stain on our collar, or maybe one of our hems on our pant leg is a little bit frayed, that guest may be thinking there's a lack of attention to detail to cleanliness in the spa, or the level of our service may not be on point. The same goes with our grooming. Now, while Forbes Travel Guide doesn't get involved in a property's specific grooming standards, we do look for a cohesive, polished appearance. And if we are wearing a lot of makeup like we're going to a nightclub and it's first thing in the morning, that may not look as polished or professional. So for women, it would be a conservative, natural appearance, that we don't want to have a lot of personal effects. So we don't want to add a lot of things onto our uniform, a lot of jewelry or distracting items that would take away from that appearance that your uniform brings. For gentlemen, we would say to have a well-coiffed haircut, want to be clean shaven, or if you do have facial hair, that it's trimmed in appearance. And then grooming, of course, would cover everything in terms of nails and hygiene and just making sure that we're always sharp. And the third critical area would be our body language, that we're always poised and ready to greet guests with alert posture. And if we are talking together and clustered into groups and not focused on the guest, that's something that our guest will see in seconds, and they will judge the service and you and the brand based on what they see. So even just taking the visual of our doormen or bell staff members that will be at the front of our establishments, a car pulling into the porte-cochere may start seeing those staff members as soon as they start to drive up to the property. So if suddenly we all stand up straight as soon as we see the car, it might be too late. So always thinking about the way we present ourselves and considering that we need to always look sharp. We always have to stay focused, but remember that we're on stage and they're always visible. Thinking about those conversations that might be in earshot of the guest or those locations where we could be seen. And also, if we are wearing face coverings or if we're wearing a mask, ensuring that it's properly on our face, that it's not under our nose, or that they're clean. If we're wearing a mask, it shouldn't have any stains or signs of wear. If we're wearing gloves, that they should look as if they've never been used before. That we want to make sure we have that heightened level of cleanliness, especially when it comes to those particular items. In terms of the category of technical execution skill and knowledge, for all of you, this goes back to all of the technical training that you had when you were onboarded. Some of you may be going through that now, but the idea is to be the expert of your area, that the service should be seamless, that the guest shouldn't question if you really know the menu, or if you are able to talk about those spa treatments when you're taking a reservation, that we want you to feel confident. So know the material, know your job, be confident, and remember you're the expert. You're also ambassadors of your property. And the more you know, the more knowledgeable you are, the easier those questions are that come from a guest. Now, if you don't know an answer off the top of your head, let's say that someone does have a question about something on property that may have changed. Maybe the restaurant hours have changed for the season. We want you to be a one-stop shop and provide that information to the guest. Maybe it's an additional phone call that you need to make, or that you'll seek out the information and leave a message for the guest in their room. The idea, once again, though, is that that guest doesn't have any jobs to do, that we shouldn't send them to the front desk or to the concierge to find out that information. We want to be the expert. We want to be the one that confidently delivers that type of information. In thinking about all of the service expectations that we talked about this far, all of these roll up to be a perfect guest interaction while we're on property. So for a moment, if we think about a guest request, and let's say someone does ask us the location of the fitness center on property. So let's think all the way back to the beginning. We want to first beat the greet and acknowledge that approaching guest that's going to ask us about the fitness center. We want to smile and make eye contact as we deliver our information. If we know their name, we can incorporate it into the conversation. Now, if it's a passing guest, we may not have their name at that moment, but if we do, we certainly want to incorporate it. And we want to consider that +1. So we have a golden nugget. We know that they're going to the fitness center. what would be a +1 to that service? They want to know where it is. We can let them know the hours of operation. We might want to let them know about some fitness classes. We could walk them over to that location. Possibly, if it's in another floor of the hotel, we can touch a different level on the elevator for them so they don't have to. Guide them through, provide the escort there, tell them about additional aspects of the fitness center that they may not be aware of, and that would be our +1. And then before we walk away, we want to give a polite closing remark. And in this instance, we know that they're going to the fitness center. So we could say, have a wonderful workout. Thank you for staying with us. That in of itself, that interaction just incorporated almost all of the service expectations that we talked about in terms of foundations. So we don't want to overcomplicate this. We want to make it simple, but we want to create habits that every interaction has that magical element of hospitality that the foundations bring to any interaction. And finally, as we near the end of our session today, we want to take a close look at great service. We talked about exceptional service, and here are some ideas from our team globally when it comes to providing a luxurious interaction, a luxurious experience for our guests that stay with us. We say to be genuine, warm, personable, natural, and effortless. So part of that genuine is the smile, the warmth is the polite tone, and the personable is that we are truly authentic and that it becomes natural to us to pick up on information that the guest shares with us. We want to eliminate as many jobs as possible for the guest. So going back and thinking through our standard operating procedures, always thinking of it from the guest perspective. If we provide this service, does the guest have any jobs to do? Have we thought through all of it in its entirety? If they do visit us at the pool, what would be the most convenient thing? What would they need to lounge and relax and not have to think about another thing? Believing in our product and being passionate. This goes back to that energy that we all emit when we truly feel passionate about our jobs and about where we work. And so when we say believe in our product, that's different for all of us here depending on our establishments. But being knowledgeable, learning as much as we can, and ensuring that we never stop learning will help to enhance the guest experience. We want to be welcoming and we want to be warm and attentive, but still allow for privacy and relaxation. And this is a very important element of our service when we consider that our guests are coming to us for many different reasons. We might have a couple celebrating their honeymoon, and sometimes our service, when attentive, might be too intrusive. So how do we ensure that we're still providing them everything that they need and being as proactive as possible, but still allowing them to have privacy? It could be a couple of business diners and they're having a meeting, and it may be a lot of silent service that comes to play when we're at their table or when they're coming to visit us and they're first checking in. Maybe they're on their cell phone. How are we ensuring that we're still warm and welcome and attentive, but still allowing them to be themselves and be relaxed? And then finally, we say tailor your behaviors and traditions to fit a guest's needs and their individual comfort in a seamless, fluid, and natural way. In all of our training and all of our onboarding, we're going to learn about the various wonderful traditions of your particular brand and where you work and what makes it so special and the personality of the property that really tailors the behaviors that we all want to exhibit when we're on property. We also want to remember that our service has to fit the guest's needs. So if we do have that business traveler that's not as chatty, we want to tailor the way that we speak to them. Maybe we're a bit more efficient and timing becomes more important to get someone checked in quickly if they're on their way to a meeting. Maybe it's that couple that comes in and they're celebrating a special occasion and they ask a lot of questions when we're checking them in, and we spend a little bit more time with them and try to give them a lot more information about what they can do while on property to experience as much as they can about the destination. But this should be something that becomes second nature, so it's seamless and it's fluid and it's truly an experience that is guided by the guest. So we want to think about being that luxury guest and what it feels like from their perspective. But as you can see from everything we talked about today, that level of service that we provide, that 75% that we talked about earlier, truly takes over. That we can have the most beautiful brand new hotel in the world, but if it doesn't have the warmth and graciousness of staff, it doesn't become an exceptional property from the Forbes Travel Guide perspective. It has to be service from the heart, it has to be genuine and authentic, and it really has to be for the guest in front of us. So to all of you who have been my guests during this webinar today, I want to say thank you so very much for your time. Thank you for the opportunity to work with all of you. And I wish you a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you again.